اللهم صل على محمد.
أعوذ بالله السميع العليم من الشيطان اللعين الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين، وصلى الله وسلم على سيدنا ونبينا محمد وآله الطيبين الطاهرين.
اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد.
السلام عليكم ورحمة الله. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala accept the efforts of mu'mineen and mu'minat who, despite challenges, continue to make an effort to learn and reflect on the ayat of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in the Holy Quran. Inshallah, we would be resurrected amongst the fuqaha, or the ones with knowledge and jurists. Continuing on reflections on the ayat of Surah Yunus, a surah that was revealed in Mecca, therefore discusses and reminds us of the core principles of Islam, the oneness of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and the confirmation of the message, the Quran, also the Day of Judgment, warnings in the Surah about denying the message and therefore living in defiance and so on. The section we're up to is once again some reminders about the creation of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and how He has made the world in ways where we can benefit and we can gain the most from every angle. Basically, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has perfected our creation and the creation of this universe in a way that everything is catered for, everything is cared for. As human beings, we need to be active, we need exercise, we need to move and not be always asleep or laying down and always resting. We need the activity, and therefore He made the day mubsara, the day where it's basically possible to see and therefore possible to be active and work. And also we need some resting time. And also some time for doing things that you don't want everyone to know about. Somehow, things that you want to keep covered in a way. So that is the night. The night covers through its darkness, it covers. Now, all of these things could be used positively or negatively. Even some tendencies that we have that lead to characteristics that may not necessarily be, I mean, these characteristics are definitely negative for our journey, but the drive behind them was not negative. What Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala created was never negative. He does not create evil. He does not create anything bad. Everything He creates is good. He creates beauty. However, at times we misuse or abuse certain things that He has created, and therefore they become sources, or that becomes a source of evil or bad things. For example, when He says in Surah Al-Falaq, بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم قل أعوذ برب الفلق من شر ما خلق ومن شر غاسق إذا وقب, from the evil of the dark night when it comes, or the darkness when it basically covers everything. Now, did He create that evil? ومن شر قل أعوذ برب الفلق من شر ما خلق. So something that it's the evil that He has created. No, it's the evil from what He has created. I hope that it's a little different. I hope that it's clear what I mean. I'll explain. So He created certain things, and they did evil. From the evil of what He has created, not the evil that He has created. He did not create the evil. He created those things, and they chose to do evil things. Okay? Or what could be in some tafsir, they say it includes things that could be perceived as evil. Okay? So at night, it's dark, you walk and you step in the territory of a snake and it bites. Okay? So we see that as an evil thing, but that's not necessarily evil. We see it as shar that happened to us, but that's not necessarily. But that's one angle. The other angle is that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala created all these things for a reason. Everything has been created for a reason, and it has a positive side to it. But if we choose to use it in the wrong way, abuse it, therefore it will turn into evil. So a good example of that, or the main examples, or the two main areas that our scholars of akhlaq, scholars of ethics, Islamic ethics, they address are referred to in Arabic as shahwa and ghadab. Shahwa means desire, and ghadab means anger. Those things is what God created and put in us. Why? Because they are important for our survival and continuation. For humankind to continue existing, we have to have the desire to eat. If we don't have the desire to eat, and the desire to live, and the desire to perhaps even get married and so on, if those things were not there, humanity would not continue existing. So those desires are important. And anger, typically it is when one gets in a defensive mode. You know, we get angry when we need to defend ourselves. Yeah, often. So sometimes one's character is attacked. Sometimes one's life is attacked. Sometimes one's family is attacked. Sometimes one's faith is attacked. So for the right reasons to get angry is a positive thing. There's nothing wrong with, in fact, it's important, it's necessary to be angry for the right reasons. If somebody attacks my family, I need to get angry, and that angry is what creates the strength and power to defend the family. That anger is actually very useful. You know, in that state, we could have so much more strength and power physically and, you know, mentally and on every level to do something, you know, because now my family is being attacked, for example, or life is being attacked. So those things are not bad. They're not evil in themselves. The night is important. The day is important. All of these things that God is granting us are important, though they may be used in the negative way. So layl, the primary goal of the night is for sukna. Nahar is for visibility. And mubsara, nahara mubsara is interesting. The term could be seen as in saying that the day is the one that sees. وَالنَّهَارَ مُبْصَرًا. So some suggest it's because the light comes from things out there to our eyes. So the seeing happens through them, not through us. That's a suggestion. Could be. In other words, the sun is the source of day and daylight. And so daylight it happens not because my eyes are emitting light. It's because the sun is giving its light on objects, and those objects are reflecting their lights into our eyes. Therefore, the ibsar, visibility, starts from objects, not from us. So he says, وَالنَّهَارَ مُبْصَرًا, not وَفِي النَّهَارِ مُبْصَرًا, for example. Not, it doesn't say that humans are seeing during the day. He says the days are seeing, or you know, almost saying the visibility happens from the day itself. That could be the reason why the term or the statement is put the way it is. Nevertheless, both of those things are reminders of how Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, through His kindness, through His mercy, through His generosity, He's providing all different things for us so that we are able to survive and thrive on every level, spiritually, physically, health-wise, mentally, and on every level He is providing for us. That's why he says, إِنَّ فِي ذَلِكَ لَآيَاتٍ لِقَوْمٍ يَسْمَعُونَ. In that, there are signs for the people who hear. Now, why يسمعون? Why not يبصرون? وَالنَّهَارَ مُبْصِرًا. Okay, so the day provides visibility. So why isn't it for people who see? Why is it sound for people who know or who hear? Hearing is the source of knowledge. The strongest source of knowledge is hearing, and then therefore following. And it's also about paying heed. Okay, when yasma'un is listening. So also about paying heed to the signs. Seeing is one thing. Now somebody's telling you and you're listening. So a believer, their sources of knowledge is beyond their own experience, but also they take from prophets, they take from the Quran, for example. So Yasma'un there is very significant because the signs there are beyond their personal experience. If humanity and seeking knowledge was limited to our personal experience, we would not go far. We have to rely on experiences of other people and statistics and research that is done before us, and others are doing it in other areas of the world. And that's how, when COVID happened, all of a sudden we have a new thing to deal with. And so humans had to put their hands together all over the world, share their knowledge, experiences, information, statistics, all of these things together. If we were to say, no, I'm only going to believe in what I see. No, I'm not going to believe in anything, only what I see. So all these things that are said from every other part of the world and all these other scientists and researchers, all of that would be useless. And if everybody did that, we would not get far at all. We would probably still be struggling with it. Wallahu a'lam. No ways to prevent, no ways to stop the spreading, no ways to cure, nothing. Everybody has to do it for themselves. So knowledge expands through hearing and listening and paying heed. So this is why لِقَوْمٍ يَسْمَعُونَ قَالُوا اتَّخَذَ اللَّهُ وَلَدًا سُبْحَانَهُ. We went through this ayah that they said that he has considered or taken a child, and subhan is that he is above, tanzih. He's above that. It's not possible. هو الغني له ما في السماوات وما في الأرض. Everything in the heavens belong to him. He is the needless. إن عندكم من سلطان بهذا. Do you have any kind of proof? If you don't have a proof, then it is accusations with no knowledge. أتقولون على الله. التقول على الله here is an accusation. تقولون على الله. You're saying against God. Something that is considered here an accusation. ما لا تعلمون. Then he says, قل إن الذين يفترون على الله الكذب لا يفلحون. Say, surely, inna is to emphasize, surely. الذين, those who, يفترون على الله الكذب. يفترون, iftira is to fabricate lies. So those who are fabricating lies against God, against Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And we said God means what? Or Allah, sorry. Allah means the God. Okay, so it has al-ilah, the God. And it is na ismul jalal. قُلْ إِنَّ By the way, a reminder that after the session, we will have, or at the end of our session, as we finish with the tafsir, we'll have a hadith, especially for the youth to, inshallah, learn and memorize, and there will be, I believe there will be rewards for those who memorize it. Yeah,
Sure.
yeah, very enticing rewards you could literally taste. I'll come to this literally tasting in this tafsir, inshallah. So he says, قل إن الذين يفترون على الله الكذب, those who fabricate and make up lies against God, لا يفلحون, they are never going to be successful. Al-falah is to be successful. Al-falah is to be victorious, a winner, a succeeding individual. Ones who fabricate lies against God will never be successful. لا يفلحون. Now, one could say, well, I've seen people who don't believe in God, who deny God, who fabricate lies against God, make up partners for God. I don't know, from some parts of the world that believe that there are multiple gods, and there are gods and goddesses, and one of them killed his son, who was also a new god, a prince god, and then he regretted it. Then he went and got an elephant head and put it on his son, so he made him resurrected him with an elephant's head, or revived him with an elephant's head. And there are stories. Some of you might be familiar with some of those stories. And I see some of those people, they're doing well. They're doing well financially. They're doing well politically. Some of them might be, big shots that are influencing some so-called Muslim leaders or Muslim country leaders. They're they in fact have put them in a position where they have established temples for them and brought these idols to the land of those Muslim leaders. Unfortunately, with them allowing that, but last night I was mentioning, they allow that, but to put a shrine over Baqiyah for the Imams of Ahlul Bayt, no way. You can build a temple, but you cannot build a masjid and a shrine and a dome over the shrines of over the tombs of the Imams of Ahlul Bayt. This is how hypocritical these people are, unfortunately. Inshallah, they are getting exposed. I see it happening. They are getting exposed in the world and in the Muslim world specifically. So the question again is, how are they successful? Quran says immediately, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, Mata'un fid dunya. This is short-lived. Mata' is, it literally means short-lived pleasure. Okay. In fact, the term regarding temporary marriage or timed marriage, it is given the same term. Yeah. The mut'a, what is referred to as mut'a, is given that name because it's short-lived, and it's for just basic, very basic or very surface pleasure. Okay. You start a family, you get married, you start a family, you have kids, God sustains you and gives you abundance and so on. You replace that with a short-lived thing. Okay, so there's definitely, within the term, there is definitely an encouragement towards one and discouragement of the other. It's allowed, yes, it is, for certain reasons, for certain circumstances, but the encouragement and the ayat in the Holy Quran are very clear about which one comes first. If you cannot marry the mu'minat and so on, فَمَا مَلَكَتْ أَيْمَانُكُمْ, then فَمَا اسْتَمْتَعْتُمْ بِهِ مِنْهُنَّ فَآتُوهُنَّ أُجُورَهُنَّ, and the rest of the ayah. So if you are unable to find yourself a mu'mina, and get married and start a family and get all the pleasures that God gives you, not just physical, on every level, mental, spiritual, emotional, and obviously the pleasures of akhirah and the statuses of sabr, for example. Marriage requires sabr, marriage patience, marriage requires sacrifice. All of these things, one goes for the short-lived one. Now, this is a message for the youth, especially nowadays, that they keep on arguing, why can't we go for that, or why shouldn't we go for that? There's no comparison. That is an alternative the second option in circumstances where the first one is not available or not possible. So again, similarly, all of these things that you may perceive as victory or a success that the non-believers see for themselves, or those who deny and fabricate lies against God, all of those things are short-lived mata'. Now, also the term refers to what you need for, when you're preparing something for a journey, you take your provision for the journey. That's also one of the meanings of the term mata'. Nevertheless, it is suggesting, the term itself is suggesting it is short-lived and it's only for dunya. Immediately he says, mata'un fi dunya. Okay? It is only for this world. Whatever is perceived as success for these people is only for this world. As soon as they depart this world, you will realize that it was not success. It was in fact nothing but a burden over their shoulders. You had money, what did you do with it? You had power and position, what did you do with it? Those things that God gave you as a trial. Dunya is a trial. It is the daru bala. It is the home of trials and tribulations. This is dunya. So money in dunya is not success. You never ever measure success with money. Somebody comes and says, oh, my son is very successful. He has a business, he's earning so much. Okay, that's all well and good. But tell me, what's his relationship with God? Okay. What is his relationship with other humans? How ethical or moral this person is? That is successful. How God-fearing, therefore, how just and fair with people. Oh, shrewd businessman. What do they call it? Cutthroat. Cutthroat, yeah. Who said that that's success? Where is his insaniyah, his humanity, his care for other humans, his or her, regardless? So success is about the great human characteristics and connection with God, not some of those outer shells, or the outer layers. These are the shells. The core of insan is not to compete with other creatures because of the physical existence. I have, some may think, okay, having long hair is success. Yeah? Can you compete with a lion and the mane of a lion? No, being tall is successful. Or is it, okay, can we be as tall as a giraffe? Can anyone be as tall as a giraffe? Being strong physically, can anyone compete with any of these beasts in the jungle? From the gorillas to I mean, lions to, I don't know, the birds. Here we have blackbirds. Yeah. I don't know if you, yeah, I've seen some. And you don't want to compete with them over physical strength. You can compete in terms of mental strength, but not physical strength. So in terms of physical attributes, there's no way we can compete with any. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala even takes it a step further in the Quran. Doesn't say giraffe. He says, can you be as tall as a mountain? إِنَّكَ لَن تَبْلِغَ الْجِبَالَ طُولًا. You will not be as tall as a mountain. لَن تَبْلِغَ الْجِبَالَ طُولًا. Subhanallah. In other words, what are you looking at the physical thing? A mountain is tall too. So, if that's what matters, fast, can you be as fast as cats? Any of the cat family, even the little ones. The small house cats. I don't think any human can run as fast as those house cats. Subhanallah. They're extremely fast animals. We just can't compete physically. So our real success should not be measured with physical characteristics or physical gainings, any kind of physical gain. That I gain, say, it reminds me of the sumo wrestlers. Yeah. So in the sumo wrestlers, the important thing is how big they are. I mean, they should have the muscles too, but also how big they are. And I think it was there because not many people could afford to become this big. To become, nowadays everybody can become a sumo wrestler. It's an easy thing to achieve nowadays. But back in the day, it was not, because abundance in terms of food and stuff is only a recent thing and perhaps itself is a trial. God forbid, if we're not grateful, we go through a drought and famines and whatever else. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala protect us from difficult trials like that, where you just don't have food. There were famines that when humanity went through in the last century, in the 1900s and so on, that they just they did not have enough food to feed their children. Nowadays, it's if any kind of hunger is occurring, is because of our injustice. But back in the day, they used to go through serious drought that everybody struggled. So basically, gaining in that way was not an easy task. You had to be rich to become a sumo wrestler, I guess. Naturally, having the tendency, as well as, in any case, those things, all of those things, even that kind of a wrestler cannot compete with any big animals like birds, for example. So the human beings, their competition should not be over how I look. This, what do they call it when they walk on stages for the show? I think they call it catwalk. Yeah, it's amazing, huh? Animal, the name of an animal. Subhanallah. This is all animal. Insan should not be competing over their looks, should not be competing over their physical strength. They were wrestling, a group of people were wrestling, and the Prophet passed and saw them. He says, لَيْسَ الشَّدِيدُ بِالصَّرْعِ. Maybe this would be the first hadith, huh? لَيْسَ الشَّدِيدُ بِالصَّرْعِ. Sar'a is when you wrestle and pin someone down. Sara'ahu, it means like got him to the ground and pinned him down. Okay? So he says, لَيْسَ الشَّدِيدُ بِالصَّرْعِ. This tough one is not by pinning someone down, getting someone down on the ground and pinning him. Then what is it with? He says, وَإِنَّمَا مَنْ مَلَكَ نَفْسَهُ عِنْدَ الْغَضَبِ. Shadid is one who can control himself when anger comes. Ghadab, we said, is good for the right reasons. So control it. You get angry, assess it. Is it because of my ego? Then we need to change that. If it's for a good reason, use my rational thinking and assess, how do I deal with the situation? I got angry for the sake of God, for the sake of humanity, for the sake of the family. How do I deal with the situation? ملك نفسه عند الغضب. You get angry, make sure we control it and we use our minds, not our emotions, in how we deal with that situation. So it's very important to remember that all of the things that may be perceived as victory and success for those who fabricate lies against God are short-lived, only for dunya, and then soon afterwards, متاع في الدنيا ثم إلينا مرجعهم. They will be returned to us. إلينا is in plural. So why would God refer to himself as إلينا? Why not إليّ? One is, we know that in the Arabic language, speaking in the plural for the first person is a sign of power, majesty. Okay, there are many examples, and in other cultures it may be also prevalent that they use the plural to refer to to confirm the power and majesty of the king, for example. The kings would refer to themselves in that way. نحن, not أنا, not me, but نحن. Also, another aspect is that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, everything belongs to him. Yes, everything belongs to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So on the day of judgment, when we return, obviously God is the judge on the day of judgment, but he's got angels who are in charge of different things. Some are guardians of hell, some are guardians or the guards in heaven. Some are they would actually escort angels. So wasiqa, the sa'iq, and there are the witness, sa'iqun wa shaheed. There are some who are witnessing, some who are they're escorting. Okay, so all of these different angels with their different roles that are basically that have been assigned to them on the day of judgment, all of these are referred to in this particular context, that they return to God and his system, the system that he has made, and therefore ilayna. Similar to when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, when we have created, or we provided. So he decrees, and he has a whole system working for him in submission. Even heaven itself, even the desert of the day of judgment, even hell, all of these things are God's. So thumma ilayna in that sense. But everybody will return to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and therefore the success is then assessed there, and God is saying la yuflihun, they will never be victorious. That is when they will realize it was not a victory, it was not success. Whatever they had was not real success. It was perceived as success because of, again, their worldly the way they see things, their worldly perceptions and beliefs. متاع في الدنيا ثم إلينا مرجعهم ثم نذيقهم العذاب الشديد بما كانوا يكفرون. I mentioned earlier that sometimes you can taste success and you get a reward and you can literally taste it. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He refers to certain punishments as being tasted. And the suggestion that we have from our scholars is that it's the peak. Sometimes it says yamassum, they feel it, it touches them. Sometimes they may even live in it. Okay. However, in this particular ayah, he says they will taste it. They yarawna, they see it. Yamassum, they feel it. It touches them, and they taste it. Okay, so the peak of it is when they can taste it. It's beyond seeing it, it's beyond just touching. It is basically so much, they're absorbed into it so much that they can taste it. Wal-'ayadu billah, we seek refuge to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala from it. He says, ثُمَّ نُذِيقُهُمْ, we make them taste. نُذِيقُهُمْ, we make them taste. Al-'adhab al-shadid. It's not just adab. نذيقهم العذاب is one thing. نذيقهم العذاب الشديد. It is severe. Shadid is something that is very hard. Okay. Here perhaps translated as severe. Okay. Serious, severe, hard, harsh. Shadid, we said ليس الشديد in the hadith, بالصرعة, one who is strength and power and toughness is not by pinning somebody down. Shadid is the same term here, al-'adhab al-shadid, the very strong, very severe, very tough adab, punishment or torment. بما كانوا يكفرون. Amazing. The adab is through what they denied. And the kufr is denial, kufr is disbelief, but kufr is also the action. The action that is the result of disbelief. So when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells us that if you are grateful, I reward you. وَإِذْ تَأَذَّنَ رَبُّكُمْ لَإِنْ شَكَرْتُمْ لَأَزِيدَنَّكُمْ. Shukr, we said, it's not just a verbal thing, it's action. Similarly, in the ayah, the opposite of it is what? وَلَإِنْ كَفَرْتُمْ. So kufr is the opposite of shukr. And in that ayah, just like shukr is not verbal, it's action, it's gratitude in action. Similarly, kufr is basically action, the action of one who is ungrateful. Okay, what is the action of one who is ungrateful? It could be, for instance, wasteful. Okay, so that wastefulness or excessive use and wastefulness, israf and tabdhir, for example, or neglect of the blessings of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, therefore abusing them, things or people, things or individuals, whether the ni'mah is a spouse, for example, and you're ungrateful for your spouse, therefore abusing them, husband or wife, either way. That is, the action is kufr. The action is being ungrateful in action. And that is how, that is what they will receive the adab through. بِمَا كَانُوا يَكْفُرُونَ. So their adab is through what they were doing, the action that they were doing. So yakfurun is not just disbelief. to say yakfurun is disbelief is very short. Maybe we have no choice but to translate sometimes. But this, the yakfurun, is their denial and disbelief that came into action. So that led into a sinful lifestyle, led into an oppressive lifestyle, led into a lifestyle of wastefulness and excessive usage and so on. All sorts of sins and all sorts of basically disobedience to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, ma'asi and dhunub, all sorts of ungratefulness in a practical sense are displayed with the term yakfurun, or are summarized in the term yakfurun. So we need to understand that the adhab is through their actions, their beliefs and actions, or disbelief and actions translated into the adhab, perhaps mental and physical. Adhab in akhirah is both, you know, the emotional, mental thing and physical. Just like we go through in dunya. In dunya, what is more tormenting? The emotional, mental, or the physical? If we really assess it and think about it, what is more daunting and killing and in fact tormenting is the emotional, mental and emotional torture. Physical, and I've mentioned this many times, this example. A child can fall and scratch themselves and bleed and not cry. And the parent grab their ear gently, not like to cause so much pain, but just as a reminder, a gentle reminder, and then they start crying. I've experienced this many times, okay? And I'm sure many of you have witnessed this. This is not a second hand, I mean, I'm speaking from experience, whether it be myself as a child or as a parent. I'm not going to tell you which one, or maybe you know. So the real torment is the emotional, mental and emotional, not the physical. And so on the day of judgment, both are there. The description given for Jahannam is typically the fire, how it burns, and the skin, and all of that. But if somebody knew that this is what, because God is pleased with me, I'm going through this, do you think they will be upset? Because God is pleased with me, I'm going through this. Remember, in dunya, they went through things like that because they wanted to please God, no? Are shuhada upset when they go through difficulty? Are the shuhada upset? Or those who, whether they actually are martyred or, you know, they are injured, are they ever upset? If they're sincere and they're genuine, they're happy. Zainab Salamullah alayha expresses what she saw as what? Beauty. Ma ra'aytu illa jamila. Beauty. So what they go through is beautiful. Why? Because it's in the pleasure of Allah, for the pleasure of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. They know that their Lord is pleased with that. They're happy. So the Jahannam, it's not just the fire. It's the fact that it is the fire لأنه لا يكون إلا عن غضبك وانتقامك وسخطك. Because we know that it's because of God's wrath. And He is angered by what we have done. And we are now paying back. It's the concept of intiqam here in terms of paying back. God taking revenge for the people who were oppressed. You oppress people, God is revenging for them. And you know that this is God's wrath and anger. Therefore, it's tormenting. It is real torment because of the knowing the reason behind it. And adab, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, it is shadid bima kanu yakfurun. So it translated whatever they felt, believed, or disbelieved, and therefore acted, translated there. If somebody consumed the wealth of the orphans, it translated into what? يَأْكُلُونَ فِي بُطُونِهِمْ نَارٌ. They are consuming fire. That's the reality of it. Now, knowing what they have done, in this world, sometimes we have to, or those who commit certain sins and crimes, they have to numb their conscience to live with it. They ignore it, and numb it, or justify things to live with it because it's painful. And some of them still cannot live with it. Eventually, they go crazy or commit suicide. And we know of the many examples that we can visit and see that those who committed certain atrocities and perhaps killed and harmed and oppressed, they either go crazy or they commit suicide. So it is very painful on the mental level. The reality of it in the hereafter, in Jahannam, wal-'ayadu billah, is both the physical, the action itself, and the mental and emotional accompanying it. And that is al-'adab al-shadida bima kan. It's with it itself. The idea, the belief, the feelings, the emotions, and the actions. Through the same things, they are getting their punishment. The next thing is, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, after this very strong warning, it's this ayah 70, pretty strong as a warning, that it is going to be tasted, and nudhiquhum, and then it is adab, and it is shadid. Okay, very strong warning, and it's through their own actions and false beliefs. Bima kanu yakfurun. Then he starts the examples of previous nations. It is very typical in the chapters that are revealed in Mecca. In fact, in general, in the Holy Quran, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gives reference to previous nations to remind us, even for instance in Surah Al-Baqarah, when he wants to tell us that we should fast, he says, كُتِبَ عَلَيْكُمُ الصِّيَامُ كَمَا كُتِبَ عَلَى الَّذِينَ مِنْ قَبْلِكُمْ. Even fasting, just like previous nations had to fast, you have to fast. It has been written for you to fast. It's an obligation. So the examples of previous nations are very common, good reminders in general, especially when there are warnings and God is warning about the consequences of not believing, denying, and living a lifestyle of sin. He says, وَاتْلُ عَلَيْهِمْ نَبَأَ نُوحٍ. The first story in this series of stories in this surah is نَبَأَ نُوحٍ عَلَى نَبِينَا وَعَلَيْهِ السَّلَامِ. To recite, utlu is to recite, alayhim, upon them, naba is important news, or the story in this, but a special part of the story. Naba nuhin idh qala liqawmihi, when he said to his people. Qawm, now some of the Mufassirin, they say Qawm is his nation, and it's not only those who are living at his time, but those who are in charge, okay, those who are in charge of the affairs of the people, they are the main addressee. It comes from qiyam, qama, qawm. Yeah, you see the same root. So qawm is from qama. Some suggest that in some context in the Quran, it actually refers to the men, the first addressee being the men. Why? We have, for example, in Surah Al-Ahzab, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He says, O you who believe, let no qawm make fun of another qawm, and they might be better than them. And then He says, and let no women make fun of other women, they might be better than them. لا يسخر قوم من قوم عسى أن يكونوا خيرا منهم ولا نساء من نساء عسى أن يكن خيرا منهن. So based on that, they say qawm is referring to the men, and the next part refers to the woman clearly. ولا نساء من نساء. Why would men be given the term qawm? Is because they are normally the ones in charge. قوامون أحسنت. So the example in the case of men and women, husband and wife, it says الرجال قوامون على النساء. So they have that position of being in charge of the affairs. Okay, they have to provide shelter, food, clothing, safety, security, all of these things. In fact, there is a suggestion there, and it is very interesting when you look at the ayat about Adam and Nuh, Adam and Hawa, ala nabina wa alayhi wa salam, from this angle. So, Islamically, the ones who committed the sin or the disobeyed, if it's a sin, if it's disobedience. Quran says disobedience, and there's a big difference. And the reason is the disobedience could occur unknowingly, without unintentionally, and it could be about something that's typically allowed. So it's not a sin by nature, okay? Whereas a sin, it's sin in itself. So the suggestion is that prophets do not commit sin, full stop. They may, in this case, he disobeyed about something that's by nature allowed, but there was a specific order about it, and they mistakenly thought it was not disobedience. So it was not deliberate disobedience to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. These are suggestions about that story. Nevertheless, that's a different discussion, not the time for it. The part, or the relevant part that I want to share, is where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, Shaitan deceived both of them, both Adam and Hawa, and alayhim as-salam. And when he did, they both tasted the tree. They both tasted. And so they both committed the disobedience. However, the ayah says, وَعَصَى آدَمُ رَبَّهُ. Adam is the one who disobeyed. Okay? Interesting. But they both did in other ayats, but specifically Adam. Okay? He was in charge. Okay? Now this is another one. So contrary to what other schools of thought, in Christianity, they blame who? Hawa alayhi salam. They suggest that this shaitan came to her and she deceived Adam. Subhanallah. Such a fabrication. Ala Allah. This is a lie against God, because this is a lie about the scripture. And therefore it's a lie against God. And obviously, for the obvious reason that they are in charge. I mean, they want to uh, as men, they want to put the other down. Very not very typical for one who has not purified. Insan who has not purified, it's very typical. In any case, Islam and Quran is very clear. Both deceived, and Adam is more responsible, if anything. وَعَصَى آدَمُ رَبَّهُ. But then again, another part, it says, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, do not let him, meaning Iblis, deceive both of you. Otherwise, you, Adam, you, fatashqa, not tashqaya. Okay? Tashqa, you. Why? The suggestion is that in Jannah, they were receiving their sustenance with no effort. They were receiving everything they were provided for with no effort. قُطُوفُهَا دَانِيَةٌ. They want fruit, it comes to them. They want food, وِلْدَانٌ مُخَلَّدُونَ, serving them. يَطُوفُ عَلَيْهِمْ. Drink, you want water, they come. Anything you want, they come. It's all provided for. They don't have to make an effort for their livelihood. Okay? When they came to dunya, who has to make those efforts? Huh? Adam, the man. He has to provide for his family. Okay? Unfortunately, in the modern society, they fooled women to tell them they're equal. Therefore, they put them in a position that they have to struggle as well to provide for the family. When God intended for them to be provided for. They were provided for in Jannah. He intended for them to be provided for here. And Adam has to provide. And he was the one who would have more shaqa. Tashqa is like you would struggle. Okay? Don't let shaitan deceive you guys, both of you, because you, Adam, will struggle. Tashqa. Not that you, both of you will. And so the suggestion there is that the struggle is intended for the man to continue to provide the garden and the safety, security, and all the necessities for his family, including women. SubhanAllah, if we only took advantage of what God taught us. So, قوم, again, إذ قال لقومه, he said to his people, or to the ones in charge in his people, يا قومي, he said to them, my people, يا قومي. So, prophets, this is important, prophets were very caring characters. They did not divide. Okay, despite having the same faith, we managed to divide, okay, and create segregations and groups and different parties. The prophets, despite having a huge difference with their people, he is worshipping the one God and they're worshipping idols. Complete opposite. Muwahhid, or the head of muwahhideen, and a mushrik. The complete opposite. Despite that, he says, my people, Ya qawmi, in kana kabura alaykum maqami wa tadhkiri bi ayatillah. Meaning if kana, if it was, kabura, it is big, alaykum, for you. If you consider kabura alaykum is an expression to say something is too much, okay? too much to take, too much to digest, okay? In kana kabura alaykum, what? First, maqami. Maqam is the fact that how long he stayed amongst the people. So if you live somewhere, that is your maqam. Or it could be translated into a status, but it's more about staying. If the fact that I stayed so long with you, okay, if the fact that I've been so I've been living amongst you for so long, and living amongst you actively, not passively, living amongst you while continuously reminding you. Maqami wa tadhkiri. So I'm living amongst you and constantly reminding you. And you remember in the story of, I believe, in the words of Nabiullah Hud, he says to his people, or Shu'aib, he says, وَلَكِنْ لَا تُحِبُّونَ النَّاصِحِينَ. I am advising you, but you don't like people who advise. Okay? Typically, if we are criticized about something that we're doing, we get sensitive. And this is a disease that we all need to work on. That if somebody comes to us criticizing us, especially if they're doing it in a manner that's not derogatory or humiliating and not exposing in privacy, somebody comes to us and tries to address something or remind us of something, even if it's not true, don't get defensive and get angry and dislike the fact that they're doing it. Why do I say even if it's not true what they're saying? Is because typically the first reaction of any of us is denial. Okay, somebody comes and says, is trying to advise me, you know, you go hard on people or on your children, for example. I go hard on my children. What do you know? That's the first thing that we would normally do. But that's not the godly figures and ethical and people who have morality would be different. They would not react in that way. Rather, they would try and listen to what's being said, assess it if there's any truth to it. And the first thing that might come to my mind, it's not true. Okay? But even if that's the case, don't reject it, don't reject them, don't get defensive. Try and be loving of an individual who is coming out of their comfort zone to say something. Because it's not very comfortable to come and advise. Okay, Amr bil Ma'ruf and Nahy an al-Munkar is not comfortable. Amr bil Ma'ruf and Nahy an al-Munkar is actually a challenging thing. Oftentimes it could be very challenging, yet we still have to do it. So if somebody is doing it for us, let us be appreciative and not immediately disliking and therefore shooting the messenger, as they say. Inshallah, we're not amongst those. Typically, it is people are like that. That's why he says, "In kana kabura alaykum maqami wa tadhkiri bi ayatillah." I'm constantly reminding you of the signs of God, and I've lived with you for so long, and I'm reminding you. If that has been heavy for you, if it's been too much for you, therefore, فَعَلَى اللَّهِ تَوَكَّلْتُ. We're coming towards Muharram. One of the statements of Imam Hussein alayhi salam on the day of Ashura was this. He recited this ayah, literally this ayah. And this is the way of godly people who are brave. They don't fear any وَلَا يَخْشَوْنَ أَحَدًا إِلَّا اللَّهِ. They fear nothing and no one but God. His people, the people of Nuh alayhi salam, he only had a few people believing in him. After all these years, they say 80 people believed. And Quran is very clear on Khaliq. Only a few people believed in him. And all the rest denied and were very strong. They were the people in charge. He's speaking to the people in charge. Ya qawm, He's speaking to the people in charge. He is speaking to the majority, and they are a very small minority, the believers, and he is the leader of this small minority. Okay? Yet, he stands up and challenges them. إن كان كبر عليكم مقامي وتذكيري بآيات الله فعلى الله توكلت. I rely on God. فعلى الله توكلت. فأجمعوا أمركم. You gather yourselves and come together for your amr, whatever you want to do. Often telling him, we will beat you, we will kill you, we would throw you out, we would harm you, all the things that you want him to do. Come and do it. And not only you, فَأَجْمِعُوا أَمْرَكُمْ وَشُرَكَاءَكُمْ. Whoever are your partners, your idols, other people, leaders, king, whatever, let them all come with you. فَأَجْمِعُوا أَمْرَكُمْ وَشُرَكَاءَكُمْ. And be clear about what you're doing. ثُمَّ لَا يَكُنْ أَمْرُكُمْ عَلَيْكُمْ غُمَّةً. Make sure you're aware of what you're doing. Make sure you're clear of what you're doing. Done. Ahsan. So secretive could be one. Do not be secretive. Now, ghumma is when something is hidden. So, for instance, when the moon does not get seen, it's like there's what we call in Arabic ghuyum, which is the clouds, because they put the cover. Okay, something is hidden. So that is referred to as ghumma alayhimul hilal. It's the statement is the hilal, the crescent, was hidden from them. So, yeah, ahsan, yes, very similar. So to remove that veil, that the cover that hides certain things, hides the truth, hides the iman, hides the moon in some case, hides the plot, if it is a plot that they have. ثم لا يكن أمركم عليكم غمة. Also about being they themselves. Now, it could be about them having a secret plot, or it also could be referring to them being all clear on what they're doing, not being confused. Okay, not to be in a state where they're unclear and unsure of what they're doing or about to do. Make sure it's not secretive, make sure it's all clear, make sure everyone knows, okay, what they're doing, you're aware of what. So part of it is to assess what they're doing. So Imam Hussein alayhi salam, when he used this, he says, remember that you are all gathered to kill the grandson of your prophet. اجتمعتم على قتل ابن بنت نبيكم. This is the matter that you're gathered here for. So be clear about it. ثم لا يكن أمركم عليكم غمة. Maybe some leaders have their plot and they're hiding certain things from you. Some of you might be confused. Maybe you're forgetting what you're here to do. Some of you may not be aware that this is what the plan is. Al-Hurr on that day did not know that the plan was to kill. When he realized that it's actually, it's going to be a fight and it's going to be killing, he had to choose. And he says, I see hell and heaven, and I have to choose between them. And eventually he decided that he would join Imam Hussein alayhi salam, knowing that he would be martyred, he would be killed, him and his children would be killed. But he never came to kill Imam Hussein alayhi salam. So that was Amrukum alaykum ghumma. That it was not clear. The Imam made it clear there. He's making, and the Prophet in this surah, Nabiullah Nuh, is telling them, be clear about what you're doing. Okay. ثم لا يكن أمركم عليكم غمة ثم اقضوا إلي ولا تنظرون. This is very powerful, this part of it. That you decree what you're doing and go ahead and execute your judgment and do not even give me, delay what you're doing. تنظرون is like respite, to give time. Do not even delay it. Go ahead. Do what you want to do. Very sure about, and so this is important to keep in mind. The stronger our faith is, the stronger our statements would be. He is very sure that this is not time. They're not going to be able to kill him. And he is very sure that if they kill him, that is the best thing for him. And he is very sure that it is in the hands of God, not in their hands. They can threaten as much as they want. If it's not time, it's not time. You know, one of the companions of, I believe it was at the time of Imam Musa al-Kadhim, alayhi salam. Either him, I believe it was at his time. So when he was in prison, one of the companions managed to visit him. And they had dug a grave to bring fear to the Imam, right there next to him. And so this companion, either him or Imam al-Askari, now I'm a little confused myself, but in any case, I believe it was Imam Musa al-Kadhim alayhi salam. The Imam was sitting there doing his ibadah, unaffected. So one of his companions who visited him, he came and said, so he started crying. The Imam had to calm him down. Said, what is this, Ya Rasulullah? This is, he loved the Imam, obviously, he was a lover. And the Imam said, don't worry, this is not the time. And now that is the knowledge. But let's say the Imam knew that that was the time. Would he be affected? Would it be any different? Never. In fact, when eventually the Imam was martyred, before he was martyred, he told his companion, who asked him, when would we have you? When is the relief? متى الفرج ابن رسول الله? He said, on Friday, meet me at the bridge. That was his faraj. So for them, for divinely appointed people, divinely guided people, for divine leaders, the imams, the prophets, for them, there is absolutely no fear. Enemy has no power, powerless, because it's all in the hands of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. They know that. So they know they're serving God, they know they're doing the right thing in the eyes of God. Therefore, whatever happens, it happens for the best. They're clear about that. That is why he was able to say, ثُمَّ اقْضُوا إِلَيَّ وَلَا تُنْظَرُونَ. On the day of Ashura, when Imam Hussein alayhi salam said this, as soon as the ladies heard that, they started crying. Because they see the enemy, thousands and thousands, and the Imam saying, come and, don't give me respect. So he had to send Ali al-Akbar and Abu al-Fadl to quieten them. He said, this is not time for you. I don't intend for this to be a majlis, but reciting this ayah takes me at least, and inshallah you join me to Karbala on the day of Ashura. That was the statement of the Imam on the day of Ashura. ثُمَّ اخْضُوا إِلَيَّ وَلَا تُنْظُرُوا. Prophet Nuh alayhi salam, absolutely no fear, absolutely no worries. He knows he is doing his duty in the eyes of God. Therefore, he tells them, you are my people. Ya qawmi. He cares for them. He loves them. It's not that there's a problem. But he also tells them, what you're doing, I'm not worried about. Gather yourselves, your partners, and do what you want to do, and don't give me a response. And don't be confused about what you're doing. Don't be secretive. Don't be confused. Be clear of what you're doing. and do it. Challenging, in other words, and the continuation, inshallah, we'll continue next session. The continuation makes it even more clear of his reliance on Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and how he is completely clear on the fact that he is fulfilling his duty, and whatever is best will happen because God is the one in control, not any of these tyrants and oppressors and dictators, none of them. It's all in the hands of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That's why divine people are extremely powerful. Despite them being sitting in a small room, the Imams of Ahlul Bayt always threaten the Khulafa despite having the army. Armies, huge armies. They were always threatened by the Imams sitting in their own room with a few students around them. And this continues. This is never changes. Our scholars are sitting in small rooms in Najaf, and the greatest powers are, inshallah. So, back to the hadith that you will taste goodness and deliciousness by, inshallah, learning. I already shared the hadith today, and it's a reminder of the hadith. Who can remember what hadith I shared? Yes. Mm-hmm. Sand, mashallah. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. Very good, mashallah. So he says, لَيْسَ الشَّدِيدُ بِالصَّرْعَةِ. Tough. The tough one is not by pinning someone down. لَيْسَ الشَّدِيدُ بِالصَّرْعَةِ وَإِنَّمَا. Indeed, it is man malaka. It's only, actually, innama is to say, indeed, it's only the one who man malaka nafsahu عند الغضب. Malaka nafsahu is to own himself, control himself. Malaka nafsahu. Malak is to be the owner of. Okay, malaka nafsahu, to be the owner of himself. Meaning what? Not to allow his emotions or shaitan to be the owner. He is the owner. Meaning his rational thinking and his mind to be the one in control at times of anger. So at times of anger, the ego comes, shaitan comes, all sorts of things come to. And some people, they want you to have a problem with another person because they will benefit. What do they say? What do they start doing? They start cheering you. Do it, yes, yes. And then next thing is there's a problem, there's a fight. But a godly person and a strong person, shadid, is one who's tough, one who's strong. Is the one who controls. ليس الشديد بالصرعة وإنما من ملك نفسه عند الغضب. Do they have to memorize the Arabic as well? Or English? They get bonus. Okay, so whoever knows the Arabic will get a bonus. And if you know the English meaning, it's good. Inshallah. Any questions? Yeah.
I'm saying nowadays we don't get, a leader who can unite us, who can pull us all together.
Yeah.
We had like that, so it would have been different.
Ahsant, yes. We need someone who can call humanity and say, Ya qawm. Alhamdulillah, we have figures who we consider indirect representatives of the Imam of our time. Some of our scholars who purified and worked on themselves, and they spent years of their lives studying and purifying and serving. Some of them act in that manner. When they speak to humanity, and they say, Ya qawm. In fact, one of the very prominent journalists in Iraq, Christian journalist in Iraq, in a very recent interview, he was praising Ayatollah Sistani. And he started stating things that would only come from Shia Ithna Ashari, who is a follower of the Imam, in terms of praising him, how even on a national level and, the Iraq and so on, he said, I cannot see anyone who's more concerned for the nation, Iraqi nation, than him. Not a single politician, not a single scholar or any other individual. That statement coming from a Christian journalist is a big thing for someone who does not have any ties in terms of, like, he doesn't work with them as part of their institution or nothing, and yet making that statement. It's because those figures, they speak for the people. They use those terms one way or another. Ya qawm. Out of care and love, they advise their people. So, for instance, when he was advising, one of the things he actually quoted Pakistani to have told him, he said, he told me directly. He said, the minister, the minister of economy. There's a minister of certain thing of economy or something. He said the one that was there and was good was Christian, and the current one is, a Shia, for instance. But it seems like this one, the current ones, all of the current ones, or the recent ones who have been Shia, have been corrupt. The only one that was suggested to not have his hands dirty, and get corrupted, was that he said, so bring him. So in other words, it doesn't matter what titles, religion, okay? He's not corrupt, bring him. Let him be the minister of the economy, for example, regardless of his faith, religion or faith. He's serving humanity, this is good. So that such ideas don't come from average people. They come from people who look at everyone as my people. Ya qawmi. Care for everyone, include everyone, not only one sect, one group. So alhamdulillah, we have, but unfortunately, their voice is not strong enough to be heard by the world. And inshallah, when the Imam comes, everyone, his call will be heard by everyone. Ajalallah ta'ala farajah al-sharif. You have a question?
Things like that to take this away, to give this. Is there anyone or people in today's world that have the ability to do this?
Yeah, so that's a very good question, Ahsan. So the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam and the Imams, salamullah alayhim ajma'een, they had certain authority. The Prophet was authorized to even make law. Okay, the Imams were authorized to explain the law, okay, and elaborate and put and explain the exceptions and exclusions and special circumstances. We don't have that authority. We have the authority to implement. And our scholars who reach the level of what, a jurist, they act like what we call hakim al-shah, and as a religious judge. And they have certain authorities, but not the same as the imam of the time, or the imams of Ahlul Bayt or the prophets. there is a small group in, amongst some level of scholars who believe that the jurists can have almost the same entitlements. But that goes against the Quran and against the very strong ahadith of Ahlul Bayt. I personally don't agree with that ideology or that belief. The scholars have certain authority, but not the same as the imams. So what is the authority? The authority are, for example, if obviously with in terms of judgment, if somebody is brought to the court, they have stolen, the authority is like a judge who would look at what they've done and what is it compared to in the rules from the Quran and Ahlul Bayt, and give the verdict of what this person should get. If it's a sentence or punishment, even including the things as the hands and so on. So that is in the Quran. That ruling is in the Quran. The cutting of the hand is in the Quran, but the explanation of it. Anyone who steals anything, so if I go and steal a candy, that should happen. If a child walks in a store and steals a candy, they should cut their hands, for example? Of course not. So there are several conditions for that rule to be implemented. One of my teachers counted 20 conditions for that rule to apply. Okay, the thief has to, if the thief was hungry or his family was hungry, excluded immediately. Yeah. If the thief was, if the item that he stole was not hidden or not protected, it's excluded. If the door was not closed or locked, it's excluded. Okay. If he, so he has to jump a wall, break into the place, take something that's not hidden, that's hidden and protected, and also not be hungry or, needy, him or his family, or someone who's sick that needs a medicine, and so on. And again, like several to 20. These are 3-4 conditions as stated now. There are 20 conditions for that rule to be implemented. So these scholars, the jurists, they have the ability to state those conditions based on the hadith, and also to apply them to circumstances. Somebody brought, assess his condition and apply those. But they cannot make a new rule or say, okay, we're not going to do this rule anymore because times have changed. We're going to, stop having this rule. We'll change things to a prison sentence, for example, instead of that. Okay, it's not our choice. If it is an Islamic law and implementation of Islamic law in an Islamic country, then the rules are Islamic rules, not made up rules. And jurists do not have the right to make up rules. They can simply explain and apply the rules that are made by the Prophet and Ahlul Bayt. I hope that answers the question. Okay. Any other question? We have a couple of minutes. Yeah. Inshallah. That is it. Walhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen. وصلى الله وسلم على سيدنا ونبينا محمد وآله الطيبين الطاهرين. اللهم صل على